Now welcome up our first student speaker of the evening. Please welcome Ms. Nicolette Ruiz and her thesis, Soldiers in the Streets, the Militarization of American Police.
Police. For some, that word made you feel appreciated, protective, or proud. For others, that word made you feel afraid, tense, or threatened. In the words of radio broadcaster Paul Harvey, police are a composite of what all men are, a mingling of saint and sinner. They see the worst of mankind. The murderers, the thieves, the rapists, the robbers, the drug dealers. They see images they can't erase, can't imagine, can't understand, can't believe. They care for those who can't care for themselves. The beaten kids, abused wives, unwanted children, injured people, dying people. Yet again, they are not perfect, as individuals or collectively. America is faced with the balancing act of power and authority given to cops, when some are so undeserving and cruel, yet at the same time, some level of authority is necessary for them to effectively do their jobs. So how do we ensure that an officer's sacrifice is not made in vain, but that civilians have an effective, honorable police force that is ready and able to serve and protect in any scenario? Militarization. The use of military-style tactics, training, equipment, or weapons of police began to take place in 1965. LAPD's Daryl Gates felt that current police protocol was inadequate to address the sort of threat posed by snipers, riots, and other violence he had seen. Having turned to his military friends for guidance, Gates created America's first specialized weapons and tactics team, better known as SWAT. Using military tactics and training, large city SWAT teams were usually only deployed in emergency situations. However, during the war on drugs in the 1960s, SWAT was regularly used to raid homes and serve arrest warrants, often using force. The International Associations for Chief of Police has described the use of force as the amount of effort required by police to compel compliance from an unwilling subject. There is no national guideline for use of force, so policy varies. The primary goal is for an officer to regain control as soon as possible while protecting the community. Use of force is an officer's last option. However, it can be a necessary course of action. Today, as a result of high-profile cases of presumed police brutality, among other things, many believe that militarization is dangerous. However, not only is militarization not dangerous, it is necessary to protect civilians and officers from the evils of the world today. Officers face war, and in order to best protect everyone, the training and equipment of officers should mirror that of the military, since they have been proven useful and successful in a time of war. It is not as if officers have never encountered hostility before. But today, they face militarized opponents and are expected to combat them. Thus, certain training and equipment is necessary to do so. Training and equipment which has been used responsibly and successfully by the military. Overall, the history of war is extremely complex, and while deliberating this, one must consider many different influencing phenomena, such as politics, socioeconomics, history of warfare, ethics, and philosophy. The nature of war cannot and should not be confined to a political term or political activity, existing only between opposing states. The Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy has defined war as a state of organized, open-ended, collective conflict or hostility. Thus, I argue that police are actively involved in war, facing groups and demographics who are violently opposed to them due to cultural and ethical differences grounded in hostile histories. When combating drug cartels, other organized crime, and terrorism, officers face conflict, hostility, and violence at its purest. Some cartels have infiltrated America, even deploying entire units to oversee domestic operations. Formed by ex-military men, Mexican cartels have acquired such an extensive amount of weaponry that they nearly rival Mexico's own military. They have grenades, tanks, car bombs, vehicles filled with sniper rifles, machine guns, bulletproof glass for windows, and the list goes on. If law enforcement is expected to face a military, the most logical conclusion is that they be trained to use military-style tactics and equipment. And that they are adequately trained to responsibly handle this equipment. Terrorism targets and threatens the lives of all Americans. From 1994 to 2014, there have been 510 terrorist attacks, domestic and foreign, on American soil. Terrorists are mobile, traveling all over America for various different reasons, and officers are the first line of defense, whether that be in a physical conflict or encountering and identifying suspicious activity. Law enforcement was praised by the Department of Justice for their response to the 2015 San Bernardino attacks. SWAT was highly successful, arriving quickly, identifying and defusing bombs, and bringing the victims to safety. However, following this attack, officers who were the first to enter separate from SWAT, who were the first to enter the building with only soft body armor not designed to stop rifle fire, have asked for changes to better prepare them for future attacks. This includes improved body armor, more rifles, and increasing medical training learned by the military in combat zones. Officers should receive military intelligence training, intelligence collection, target protection, first responding, and post-event criminal investigation, as well as de-escalation techniques and instinct discipline. SWAT should have regular access to advanced weaponry and equipment and should receive the specialized training to operate this equipment. This equipment will only be called upon when no other peaceful option is available or when it will best protect innocent lives. This training and equipment can save countless lives. In fact, it already has. In 2014, during a 9-hour standoff, officers were able to monitor the position of a robbery suspect using a robot and spray him with tear gas, allowing police to safely enter the building. Additionally, in 2016, during a peaceful protest in Dallas, Michael Xavier Johnson, a military veteran, shot 7 officers, killing 5. Officers faced a trained sniper. This man was not a troubled youth or a street thug. After hours of negotiation, officers were able to neutralize the threat without any added casualties by using a remote-controlled bomb disposal robot carrying an explosive device. Bomb disposal robots have saved numerous lives already, originally developed to support the military in asymmetric warfare. America has had a long-standing history of peaceful protests, such as the one in Dallas, quickly escalating into a violent outrage. A singular protest in 1992 resulted in 55 civilian deaths, 2,000 injuries, 4,000 buildings burned, and about $1 billion in property damage. This LA riot ensued for 6 days, and police were under-equipped, underprepared, and underprotected. When police face dangerous situations, they need all the possible protective equipment, and this includes specialized gear. A healthy relationship between law enforcement and civilians necessitates reciprocity. If civilians desire to have a law enforcement that is able to protect the community, then they must welcome the resources that are essential to doing so. And in return, law enforcement must understand the appropriate times to use these resources and must be held accountable when they do not. The military understands that in order to effectively govern its soldiers, it must train them to manage their instincts and hold them legally accountable when they do not. We can hold law enforcement to a higher standard while also ensuring that they have the materials and equipment they need to successfully and safely do their job. Yet former officer and Arthur Ritzer and scholar Joseph Hartman still fear that militarization will change an officer's mindset from peacemaker to soldier. The role of law enforcement has traditionally been to keep the peace and to protect the civil liberties of all citizens under the rule of law. They argue that when an officer is dressed like a soldier, armed like a soldier, and trained like a soldier, it is usually expected that they would act like a soldier. And a soldier's primary objective is to kill the enemy. This argument implicitly manipulates the reader's view of the reality of military training by asserting that a soldier's inherent goal is violence. However, a soldier is trained to do vastly more than kill, and rather is trained to manage the instinct to react rashly in high-stress situations. Soldiers are governed by rules of engagement which require them to avoid violence by any means necessary. Tactical training encouraging de-escalation techniques and verbal warnings will not obstruct peace, but preserve it. Use of force, and especially use of lethal force, is and must remain an absolute last option for all law enforcement officers. The purpose of this training is to provide more de-escalation measures and instant control, reducing the risk of mistake with a tight command and control structure, just as in the military. The public should not fear that they will become an enemy of police, but should feel secure knowing that they are better prepared to handle high-stress situations. The lives of everyone involved, police, civilians, and perpetrators, would be safer as a result of this. In today's warlike state, militarization of police must be welcomed, since it is the best way to protect all Americans. This is not meant to shift the blames of shortcomings or disasters from one party to another. It is not about fighting back against recent or long-standing criticism of police. It is an advocate for the defense and protection of all people. And whether or not you agree with my proposed method to achieve this, I hope you share the same desire. I hope you never expect such cruelty, destruction, and pain as routine, but that you stay vigilant. We live in a fallen and broken world filled with diverse evils. So may we, as Christians, pursue justice and what is honorable, and treasure life and the protection of it. Thank you.